The wind of Rinner moved like a living thing. It carried fine grains of golden sand across the empty plains and sang a low tune against the sharp rocks. Under the endless orange sky, a group of humans walked in single line, their suits glowing faintly under the heat. They were explorers, not soldiers, yet every step they took felt like they were marching into something ancient and powerful. Myra walked at the front. Her helmet was scratched from long journeys, but her eyes stayed bright and alert. She was not afraid of the desert. She had crossed worse places on other planets, yet Rinner felt different. It was quiet in a strange way, as if the air itself waited for something to happen. Behind her came Ral, the team's engineer. He carried heavy equipment that clicked and hummed with every step. Two more followed, Lean and Dar, both scientists and friends of Myra. Their mission was simple on paper. They were to find the source of an energy signal that had been detected by satellites. But nothing about this mission felt simple anymore. For 3 days, they had walked through the desert. The signal grew stronger with each mile. It came from below the ground, steady and rhythmic like a heartbeat. No storm, no shifting sand could hide it. Ral called it the call of the earth. Myra said it was a message. Lean believed it was a trap. When the sun began to set, the horizon shimmered. Something tall rose from the sea of sand. It looked like a mountain at first, but the edges were too sharp, too perfect. As they came closer, their lights reflected off its surface, and the truth appeared before them. A pyramid stood in the middle of the desert, half buried, made of gold that glowed softly under the dying light. Its surface was smooth, untouched by age or weather. No marks, no cracks, no signs of builders. It stood as if it had grown from the earth itself. Ral stopped walking. "It can't be metal. Nothing this pure survives the storms," he said, checking his scanner. Myra stepped forward, brushing sand from a corner of the structure. The pyramid gave off a faint hum that her suit sensors picked up. It pulsed gently, like something breathing. "It's not just metal," she said. "It's alive." The team set up camp a few meters away. As night covered the desert, they sat together, eating dried food and watching the pyramid glow faintly in the distance. The stars reflected on its golden surface, turning it into a mirror of the sky. Dar broke the silence first. "Locals call this place the Echo Tomb," he said. "They say voices speak here when the wind stops. No one ever comes near it." Ral laughed softly. "Those stories. Every planet has them." But Myra did not laugh. She had heard many legends in her travels. Most were only stories, yet many were born from truth. The pyramid made her uneasy, not with fear, but with awe. Something about it felt wrong in a way that her mind could not explain. When the wind died that night, the desert became still. Not a sound moved. The air felt heavy, thick with waiting. Then Myra heard it. A soft vibration passed through the ground, a slow pulse like a distant drum. Her heart matched its rhythm. She turned to Ral, who was checking the instruments. His eyes widened. "The signal just doubled," he whispered. "It's reacting to us." Lean looked toward the pyramid. "It knows we are here." The hum grew stronger, traveling through their bones. It was not sound but feeling. Mira closed her eyes and listened. It was as if the earth was trying to speak. There were no words, yet the message was clear, a greeting, maybe a warning. Mira walked closer, her boots sinking into the sand. The pyramid loomed higher as she approached, its golden surface reflecting the starlight. She reached out her hand and touched the cold metal. Instantly, a wave of warmth spread through her glove. The hum deepened, and for a moment the desert disappeared from her sight. In her mind, she saw stars spinning in black space. She saw planets forming, oceans rising, creatures crawling from dust. Then she saw cities of gold, tall and bright, filled with light that sang instead of burned. The vision lasted only a second, It had left her breathless. When she stepped back, Raoul grabbed her arm. "What happened?" he asked. "I saw something," she said quietly. "Not a dream. A memory." Lean looked uneasy. "Maybe the metal holds data, some kind of record." "Maybe," Myra said. But it felt alive. The night stretched on. None of them slept much. The pyramid's heartbeat continued, slow and patient. It did not threaten. It only waited. At dawn, the sandstorm came. The sky turned gray and violent, winds howling like wild beasts. The team rushed to secure their equipment. Through the storm, the pyramid stood unmoved, shining through the dust like a second sun. Inside the storm's roar, Mira thought she heard voices. They were soft, distant, layered one over another. She could not make out words, but they carried emotion, sadness, longing, hope. It was as if 1,000 forgotten souls were whispering together. When the storm finally passed, the pyramid gleamed brighter than before. Its surface had changed. Symbols now covered it, glowing faintly in patterns that moved like water. Mira had seen ancient languages from hundreds of worlds, but these marks were new to her. Raoul scanned them. His device beeped, showing unreadable lines. "It's not any code I know. It's not numbers, not letters, not sound. It's something else. Maybe it's waiting for us to answer," Myra said. They worked through the morning, taking readings and samples, but nothing behaved as expected. Metal that should have been solid moved like soft clay when touched, then hardened again. Energy spikes appeared and vanished at random. Every time they tried to record the hum, their equipment failed. The pyramid erased all digital traces. By evening, Myra decided to rest. She climbed a small dune and looked at the golden structure. In the sunset, it looked peaceful, almost kind. She felt drawn to it again, not out of curiosity but respect. Raoul joined her, sitting beside her on the sand. "You think it's safe to go inside?" he asked. "I think it's waiting for us," she said. "Whatever built it, they wanted to be found." Raoul looked down at the scanners. Then why hide it under miles of sand? "Maybe it wasn't hiding," Myra said. "Maybe the world forgot." That night, the hum changed. It grew sharper, more focused, almost like a melody. The golden symbols on the walls began to glow in rhythm with the sound. The pyramid seemed alive, responding to something unseen. The team gathered near it again. Lean pointed to a section of the wall where the light pulsed in a steady line. "It looks like a door," she said. Myra stepped forward, her heart racing. "A door that opens with sound," she said softly. As if hearing her, the pyramid vibrated once more. The light on the wall flared, and a small section began to shift. The sand trembled as the golden panels moved apart, revealing a narrow path leading downward into darkness. The air that came out was cool and clean, untouched by time. The humming stopped. The desert became silent again. Raoul looked nervous. "Myra, are you sure we should go in?" "We don't know what's inside." Mira smiled faintly. "That's why we came here." She took the first step into the golden passage. The walls reflected her figure in strange ways, showing her face older, younger, then unknown. Her heart pounded, but she did not stop. Humanity had reached countless worlds, yet none like this. Every discovery before had spoken through signs, stones, or ruins. This one spoke through silence and gold. As the others followed her, the door began to close slowly behind them. The last sound they heard before it sealed was the whisper of the desert wind fading into stillness. For the first time in centuries, the pyramid had awakened. The golden passage swallowed the light from their lamps as Mira and her team stepped inside. The walls seemed to glow faintly on their own, enough to show the path, but not enough to comfort their nerves. The air was strange, not heavy like in old ruins, but clean and fresh, as if it was being renewed every second. Raoul ran a gloved hand along the wall. It was warm to the touch, pulsing gently as if alive. "This place feels like a living thing," he said quietly. Lean held her scanner up. The readings moved wildly, unable to settle. "It keeps changing," she whispered. "Every few seconds, the structure reorganizes itself." Mira walked at the front, her light sweeping across the walls. The golden material shimmered as if it were made of liquid light frozen in motion. Symbols danced faintly beneath the surface, flowing like rivers of meaning. Each turn of the tunnel revealed more carvings, more signs that this place was never built by human hands. The passage sloped downward until it opened into a wide hall. Pillars of gold lined the space, their tops lost in shadow. The floor was smooth and reflected their faces. It looked endless. Dar stepped forward and tapped the surface with his boot. The sound echoed softly, stretching farther than it should have. It came back not as a single echo, but as many, layered together like a chorus of voices repeating his step. Myra frowned. "It's responding to sound," she said. "Every noise we make creates an answer." Raoul dropped a small metal tool onto the floor. It bounced once, and the echo that came back was strange. It repeated the sound, but also added another note, lower and longer, like a whisper hidden inside a song. "This is not simple reflection," Lean said. "It's communication." They moved carefully across the hall. In the center stood a massive statue carved from the same golden metal. It was tall and faceless, with arms stretched outward as if welcoming them. At its base lay a round platform covered in symbols that glowed faintly with blue light. Myra approached it slowly. "This must be the source of the pulse we detected," she said. "It's coming from right beneath us." Raoul crouched near the platform. His instrument showed a deep energy signature that reached far below the surface. "There's a power core under this place. It's still running after all this time." Lean looked around the hall. "Then who built it? And why does it feel like it's watching us?" Myra said nothing. She placed her hand gently on the statue. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hum that had followed them from the desert grew louder, vibrating through the floor and into their bodies. The golden walls brightened. The blue symbols under the statue flared with light. The sound grew until it became more than a hum. It was a rhythm, a steady heartbeat that matched Myra's pulse. Her vision blurred and filled with flashes of light. She saw stars exploding and fading, planets forming and breaking apart. She saw rivers of gold spreading across space, connecting worlds like threads. Then the images vanished. The hall was silent again, though none of the team could move. "Myra," Raoul said weakly, "what did you do?" "I think it tried to speak," she answered. "Not in words, but in memories." Their devices, which had been recording everything, showed only static. Every file had been erased. The pyramid allowed them to see, but not to keep what they saw. Dar looked nervous. "It doesn't want to be studied. It wants to be understood." They decided to rest in the hall before going deeper. Raoul sat near one of the pillars, trying to make sense of his broken readings. Lean walked around the chamber, tracing her fingers over the glowing symbols. Mira stood at the center, watching the statue. She felt the same pulse through the ground, slower now, almost calm. When she closed her eyes, she heard faint echoes inside her head. Not words, but feelings. Curiosity, patience, sorrow. The pyramid felt old, older than any world she had known. Yet it was still alive, aware, waiting for something. Hours passed in silence until Raoul noticed movement. The golden surface of the walls began to shift, forming patterns like waves in water. The light from the pillars grew stronger, casting long shadows. From the far end of the hall, a doorway appeared, smooth and perfect. Where there had been only solid wall before, Myra turned toward it. "It's opening the way," she said. Lean hesitated. Do we follow? We came here to learn, Myra said. We go forward. They walked through the new passage. The air grew cooler, the walls brighter. The symbols on the surface changed again, showing shapes of stars and creatures with glowing eyes. The sound of their steps echoed far ahead, returning to them in musical tones. At last they entered a new chamber, smaller but brighter than before. The walls here were covered in flowing patterns that moved like living light. In the center stood a round structure that looked like a table, made of gold and glass. Myra stepped closer and saw that it was not solid. It held a swirling mist inside, shining with tiny sparks like a galaxy. It's some kind of map, she said softly. A memory of the stars. Ral adjusted his device to capture the image, but once again, the readings refused to save. The mist pulsed when he tried, almost as if it sensed his attempt. Lean pointed to one side of the map. A bright circle shone there, and around it smaller dots moved slowly in perfect paths. That looks like a solar system, she said. Dar nodded. If this is a record of space, maybe it's showing where its creators came from. Myra leaned closer. Among the countless stars, one began to glow brighter. It was shaped like their own sun. Around it was a small blue dot. Her breath caught. It's showing Earth, she whispered. Ral looked up in surprise. How could it know about Earth? Lean stared at the glowing point. Unless someone or something saw us long before we ever came here. Before anyone could speak again, the golden light filled the chamber. The mist inside the map rose into the air, spreading across the ceiling in shapes of stars and galaxies. Then a voice came, not from any single direction, but from all around. It was deep, soft, and carried meaning through feeling rather than sound. Myra felt it inside her chest. It spoke not in words, but in memory. Images filled her mind again, endless worlds, rising and falling, civilizations building great wonders and then turning to dust. The message was clear. The pyramid was a vault of memories, a place where the echoes of lost worlds were stored. The light dimmed slowly, leaving them standing in silence. Ral's voice shook. It's a record of everything that came before us. Lean's eyes were wide. Then who keeps it? Who decides what stays remembered? Myra looked at the golden walls. Maybe it remembers on its own. Maybe that is what it was built to do. They stood together, trying to understand the scale of what they had seen. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Dar pointed to the map again. One by one, the stars inside it began to fade, until only one remained, the blue dot that marked Earth. It pulsed slowly, like a living thing. Lean whispered, "Why is it showing only our world now?" The voice came again, softer but clearer this time, carrying a single thought that echoed in all their minds. It said, "You are not the first. You are not the last. You are the next memory." The chamber shook lightly, and the map dissolved back into mist. The doorway they had entered closed behind them. Another opened ahead, shining with white light. Myra felt her pulse quicken. "It's guiding us," she said. Ral looked uneasy. "Or testing us." Myra stepped forward. "Maybe both." The team followed her into the new corridor. As they walked, the hum of the pyramid returned, louder now, almost musical. The air vibrated with unseen energy. The walls began to show shapes of humans walking among stars, building cities, reaching for light. Myra understood then that the pyramid was showing them their own story, not the past, but what might come. It was learning about them even as they learned about it. When they reached the end of the corridor, they found another chamber, even larger, filled with golden mirrors reflecting endless versions of themselves. In the center stood a stone pedestal with a single glowing sphere resting on top. It pulsed gently, matching the rhythm of their hearts. Myra stopped and stared at it. "This is the core," she said. "The heart of the pyramid." Lean stepped closer, but stopped halfway. "It feels like it's alive." Myra nodded slowly. "It is alive, and it wants us to listen." The hum deepened once again. The walls glowed brighter. The pyramid waited, and so they listened. The golden chamber glowed with a soft light that made the air look alive. Mira stood still, staring at the glowing sphere resting on the pedestal. It pulsed gently, the same rhythm she had felt since the moment they found the pyramid. Her heart matched its beat without effort, as if the two had been connected from the beginning. Raoul moved closer, scanning the area carefully. His device made faint clicking sounds, but the screen showed nothing clear. The readings flickered between normal and impossible. "It's giving off energy far beyond anything I've seen," he said. "But it's not radiation or heat. It's something else." Lean looked around the chamber. The walls were smooth and covered with reflections of their own faces, repeating endlessly in every direction. It felt like they were being watched by hundreds of versions of themselves. Each reflection moved slightly slower, like echoes in time. "This place feels strange," she whispered. "Like we're walking inside a memory." Mira took a careful step toward the pedestal. The sphere seemed to respond, glowing brighter. A faint sound rose in the air, not a hum this time, but a chorus of soft voices. They blended together into one endless tone that filled the chamber. Dar covered his ears. "It's inside my head," he said, his voice shaking. "I can hear words, but I don't understand them." Mira focused on the sound. It wasn't painful. It was warm and calm, like a message carried through music instead of speech. Images began to fill her thoughts again. Fields of stars, cities made of light, beings of gold walking through endless halls. Then she saw something different. A wave of darkness spreading across the stars, swallowing one world after another until only silence remained. The light from the sphere flickered. Myra stepped back. The vision stopped. Raoul frowned. "It's reacting to you directly. Maybe it reads thoughts." Lean looked uneasy. "Then, we have to be careful. We don't know what it's learning from us." Mira nodded, but could not look away from the sphere. "It's not just reading. It's remembering." The air in the chamber grew cooler. The golden reflections began to move on their own. In one of them, Mira saw herself speaking though she had said nothing. The reflection's mouth formed silent words that she could not hear. Then another reflection moved differently, turning its head when she did not. Raoul stepped back, eyes wide. "The reflections are not copying us anymore." Each mirror image started to act on its own, forming a circle around the team. They looked like shadows of gold, faint but real. Slowly, they began to walk toward the pedestal. Lean's breathing quickened. "What is happening?" Before anyone could answer, the sphere pulsed once and the reflection stopped. The chamber grew still again. Then the walls began to change. Symbols appeared across the surface, glowing in lines of blue and white. They formed shapes that resembled constellations, then changed into images of ancient beings. Mara realized what she was seeing. "It's showing us the ones who built this place." The golden figures in the walls moved gracefully, working together to raise massive structures, building worlds across the stars. Their faces were calm, their bodies glowing with inner light. They were creators, not conquerors. But the scene shifted. The same beings were shown running, their cities falling, their light fading. A shadow spread across their worlds until nothing remained but silence. The light dimmed. The sphere grew darker for a moment, then brightened again. Dar looked down. "It's a story," he said quietly. "A history told through memory." Myra nodded. "And now it's our turn to be written into it." A low vibration rolled through the floor. The sphere lifted from the pedestal, floating in midair. It spun slowly, sending thin lines of light toward each member of the team. The lights touched their suits, then sank through the fabric as if the material didn't exist. Ral panicked for a second. "It's inside the suits," he said, checking his readings. Energy levels rising, but no harm. Myra stood still. The light felt warm, peaceful, almost like a greeting. She closed her eyes, and the voice returned, clearer than before. This time, it spoke directly to her mind. It said, "You seek knowledge. Knowledge must remember. The pyramid is memory. You are the next echo." She opened her eyes and spoke aloud. "What do you mean?" The voice filled the air again. "Every world leaves an echo when it falls. We hold them all. We wait for those who still rise." Aline frowned. "It's telling us that every civilization ends and it keeps their memories here." Dar looked at Myra. "Does that mean humanity will end too?" Myra didn't answer. She felt the pyramid's pulse again, slow and patient. "It means we will be remembered," she said quietly. The sphere returned to its pedestal. The light spread out across the chamber floor, forming paths leading in 4 different directions. Each path glowed with a different color: blue, red, green, and gold. Ral knelt to study them. 4 paths, 4 meanings maybe. But which one do we take? Before they could decide, the golden voice spoke again. "Each path is a memory. Choose the truth you wish to see." Myra looked at her team. "We came here for answers. We choose together." They agreed to take the golden path, the one that shone brightest. The moment they stepped on it, the chamber behind them faded away, replaced by a long corridor filled with light dawned as they walked. The walls around them changed shape. The scenes they had seen before appeared again, but this time, the golden beings were joined by humans. They worked side by side, building towers and machines that reached the stars. Myra watched with awe. "It's showing a future," she said. "One where we learn from them." Ral shook his head. "Or it's showing what it wants to happen." At the end of the corridor, a door appeared. It opened silently, leading into a smaller room filled with floating crystals. Each crystal contained images inside, moving like living memories. One showed oceans, another cities, another faces of creatures long gone. Lean reached out to touch one. The crystal glowed and played a scene. They saw a world with blue skies and golden fields, filled with tall towers of light. Then the towers fell, and darkness covered the land. The scene faded. "These are the echoes," Myra said softly. "Each one a memory of a world that no longer exists." They moved from one crystal to another. Some showed peace, others chaos. Some ended in silence, others in light. All shared the same final moment, a fading heartbeat that matched. The pulse of the pyramid itself. Ral stared at one crystal that showed humans building ships and leaving Earth. "It already knows about us," he said. "It's watching our history as if it already happened." Mira turned to him. "Maybe time doesn't work the same way here. Maybe it sees all moments at once." A deep sound filled the chamber. The crystals began to vibrate, rising higher into the air. Then one broke apart, scattering golden dust that spread through the room. The dust floated toward Myra and her team, forming shapes around them. The shapes turned into outlines of figures, tall, golden, familiar. They looked like the beings from the earlier visions. One of them stepped forward. Its face had no eyes or mouth, yet they all felt its gaze. It spoke without sound. "We are the keepers. We are the memory. You stand at the center of all echoes." Mira felt calm instead of fear. "Why show us this?" she asked. "Because you listen," the being replied. "Many came before, but they did not hear. They only took. You ask. That is why we speak." Lean's voice trembled. "What happens to us now?" The being's shape shimmered. "You choose what your world will leave behind. All worlds end. The echo is eternal." The golden dust began to gather again, forming new shapes, humans standing beside the golden beings, hands joined. The message was clear. The pyramid was offering them a place in its endless memory, not as a warning, but as a gift. Mira took a step forward. If we choose to be remembered, what do we give? The answer came at once. You give your truth. The chamber darkened. The light from the walls faded until only the glowing crystals remained. Each one now showed images of earth, oceans, mountains, cities, faces of people. The pyramid had begun to collect humanity's echo. Raoul turned to Myra. We have to leave. If it keeps taking, it might take everything. Myra nodded. We'll go, but we take the message with us. The golden being stepped back. The light around it grew brighter, then slowly disappeared into the crystals. The chamber became silent again. The path they had entered reopened behind them, shining faintly. They followed it back to the main hall. The pedestal still stood there, the sphere now dim and quiet. The reflections on the walls had returned to normal. Everything looked peaceful again. Mira looked around and said softly, It tested us. It wanted to know what we would do with its memory. Lean replied, And what did we show it? Mira smiled faintly. That humans still listen. They gathered their equipment and began the climb back toward the surface. The hum followed them until they stepped out into the open desert. The sun had risen high, and the golden pyramid stood shining quietly under the sky. As the wind began to move again, they heard one last faint echo. A whisper carried through the sand, gentle and calm. It said only one thing: remember. The halls of the golden pyramid stretched endlessly before them. Myra's heart pounded as she led her small team deeper into the shining structure. The air inside was heavy, not with dust or heat, but with a strange presence that seemed to press against their minds. It was not darkness that frightened them, but the feeling that they were being watched by something older than time itself. Behind Miro walked Raoul, his face pale and his scanner shaking in his hands. The device showed strange symbols that shifted and flickered. Lean followed, carrying a light source that barely reached the end of the corridor. The golden walls seemed alive, pulsing gently with a heartbeat of their own. The deeper they went, the louder that rhythm became. It was not just sound, but vibration, a feeling that moved through the bones. Myra stopped and pressed her hand against the wall. It was warm, almost like skin. The golden surface rippled under her touch as if it were listening to her. Raoul whispered that the pyramid was changing its shape again. He pointed to the corridor behind them, which had closed completely. The entrance was gone, replaced by smooth metal that looked as if no path had ever existed. They were trapped, but Mira did not show fear. She steadied her voice and said that this place wanted to speak, not to harm them. The moment she said that, the hum grew softer, almost calm. The walls ahead brightened, revealing symbols glowing in slow waves of light. They were not written in any known language, yet each member of the team felt that they understood the meaning in some deep part of their mind. It was not about words, but about feelings, memory, sorrow, and endless time. They entered a large chamber filled with pillars of gold. Each pillar had carvings that shifted when seen from different angles. The air shimmered with light, and the sound of distant whispers filled the room. Mira walked to the center, where a round platform stood. She sensed that this was the heart of the pyramid. The voice returned, not as a sound, but as a pulse inside their minds. It was one voice now, deep and ancient. Mira asked what it wanted, and in answer, the golden floor lit up. The light formed pictures in the air: planets being born, oceans rising, cities falling. The images were beautiful, but carried sadness, like memories of lives long gone. The voice showed them worlds that had come before, civilizations that had built wonders greater than any human dream, yet every one of them had vanished. Their voices had faded, leaving behind only echoes. The pyramid had stored those echoes, keeping them safe through endless ages. Mira began to understand. The pyramid was not a tomb but a library of souls. It remembered what others had forgotten. It collected the final thoughts of dying worlds, preserving them in gold so they would never be lost to silence. Lean asked why the pyramid was showing this to them. The answer came slowly, like a thought forming inside all their minds at once. It said that humanity had reached the point where others had fallen. It had seen humans grow strong and spread among the stars, but it had also seen their wars, their hunger for power, and their fear. The pyramid had watched, waiting to see if humans would end like the others. Myra stood still. She felt a deep sorrow inside the voice, not hatred or judgment, but something like grief. She realized that the pyramid was not warning them out of anger. It was lonely. It carried the memories of countless worlds, but had no one left to understand them. She asked what it meant when it said, "Humanity must choose what would be remembered." The chamber brightened again, and a wave of energy passed through them. Each of them saw flashes of their own memories: childhood, laughter, pain, love, and loss. The pyramid was showing that memory was the only thing that truly lasted. It said that silence was not emptiness. Silence was the purest form of truth. In silence, there were no lies, no pride, no war. Only what was real. It had kept the voices of the lost in silence so their truth would never fade. Rao fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the images flooding his mind. He saw entire species burning their worlds in greed. He saw civilizations building weapons to destroy their sons. He saw beauty, art, kindness, dreams, but all of it buried under noise and chaos. Myra helped him up. She felt the same pain, but she also saw something different. Humans were not like the others. Even when broken, they built again. Even in darkness, they sang. They told stories not to rule but to remember. Humanity carried hope as if it were part of their blood. The pyramid seemed to listen to her thoughts. It answered with a single word that echoed inside every heart choice. Then the walls began to move again. The pillars melted into the floor, and the golden light surrounded them. They felt weightless as the voice spoke once more. It said that it had kept silence for eons, waiting for one race that could understand it. It had now found that race. It offered them the same gift it gave to the others, a place in eternal memory. But this time, the pyramid would not choose what to remember. Humanity would decide for itself. The light dimmed, and Mira found herself standing in front of a new doorway. The symbols on the walls formed into human letters, glowing faintly. They read, "Speak not in words, but in truth." She understood that the pyramid was asking them to decide what truth humanity would leave behind if it were ever gone. Not machines or weapons, but something deeper, what it meant to be human. Lean's voice trembled as she said that maybe they should leave before it changed again. But Mira shook her head. She said that they could not run from this. The pyramid was not their enemy. It was a mirror showing them who they were and what they could become. The walls began to hum again, softer now, like a heartbeat in the distance. The team felt calm, even though they were still trapped. Mira closed her eyes and tried to speak not with her mouth, but with her mind. She thought about humanity's greatest strength, not technology or power, but the ability to care, to dream, and to remember. She thought of her family back on Earth, of the small blue planet that had sent them across the stars, not to conquer, but to learn. The pyramid reacted instantly. The golden floor glowed beneath her feet, spreading light across the chamber. The hum grew warmer, like the sound of 1,000 soft voices. The pyramid's voice returned, clearer than before. It said that it understood now. It called humans the keepers of echoes. It said that among all the races it had seen, only humans carried memories with both joy and sorrow. And that made their existence complete. The walls around them began to open slowly. The path behind them reappeared, shining bright with golden light. Ral cried out in relief, but Mira stayed still. She knew the conversation was not over. Before they could leave, the voice spoke one last time. It said that silence was not the end, but the beginning of understanding. It promised that it would keep watching, learning from the songs and stories of humankind. It told them that one day, when their voices faded too, their memories would live here, side by side with all that came before. The light faded again, leaving them standing in soft glow. The pyramid grew quiet, peaceful as if it had gone to sleep. Mira looked at her team and saw both fear and wonder in their eyes. She told them that the pyramid had not given them a warning, but a gift on as they began to walk back through the reopened corridor. Lean whispered that maybe silence was not something to fear after all. Mira smiled slightly. She understood that silence could speak louder than any sound, if only one listened carefully. When they reached the entrance, the desert wind rushed in, carrying grains of golden sand. The pyramid stood still behind them, glowing faintly under the twin suns of Rinner. Myra turned to look one last time. She felt as if the pyramid was watching them leave, content that its message had been heard. She whispered softly, not for anyone to hear but for the pyramid itself. She said that humanity would remember, and they would make sure the silence was never empty again. The wind carried her words away into the endless dunes, where gold spoke in silence and the echoes of the past waited for the next dawn. The desert of Rinner stretched endlessly under the twin suns. Mira led her team across the warm sands, leaving the golden pyramid behind. Its surface glowed faintly, a quiet heartbeat in the distance. And for the first time since they had arrived, the explorers felt a sense of completion. Yet something lingered in the air, a subtle pull, like a soft whisper calling them to remember. Ral adjusted his scanner one last time. "I don't think we can ever measure what's inside that place," he said. "Nothing on any planet could record what we saw." Lean nodded, brushing sand from her gloves. "It's not meant to be measured," she said. "It's meant to be understood." Dar walked silently beside Myra. "I keep thinking about the echoes," he said. "All those lost worlds, their memories are safe there, and now ours will be too. I've never felt anything like that." Mira smiled faintly. She looked back at the pyramid, its golden surface reflecting the sunlight. "It isn't just a building," she said. "It's a library, a guardian, and a storyteller all at once. It remembers everything that was, so that nothing is ever truly lost." The journey back to their ship was quiet. Each of them felt the weight of the experience, carrying it like a precious artifact in their hearts. The desert seemed different now, less empty, less harsh. Each grain of sand glimmered with stories. Each whisper of wind carried a memory from the past, mingling with the living. When they reached the landing site, Myra paused to take a final look at the horizon. "We've been given a responsibility," she said. "We saw what silence can hold. We saw what memory can do. Humanity must honor it." Ral sighed. "It's a lot to take in. How do we even begin to explain it to anyone?" "You don't," Myra said. "Not fully. Some things cannot be told. They have to be felt, understood, carried forward. And one day, when humans reach as far as the pyramid can see, they will know it themselves." Lean nodded in agreement. "It's like it taught us without saying a single word. Everything we saw, everything we felt. It's ours now to carry." The team climbed into their ship. The engines hummed to life, and the ground beneath them vibrated slightly as if the pyramid was aware of their departure. Mira felt a warmth in her chest, a connection she could not explain. The pyramid had touched them, marking them as part of its eternal memory dot as they lifted into the sky. The golden structure grew smaller in the distance, yet its presence remained. It did not fade. It only waited, silent and patient. Mira realized that no matter how far they traveled, The pyramid would always be there, a silent witness to the rise of humanity and the echoes of worlds long gone dot in the days that followed. The team returned to Earth, carrying their experiences quietly, with no recordings to show the outside world. Any attempt to document the pyramid's energy failed. Instruments broke, files disappeared, and photographs became blank. It was as if the pyramid had decided that some truths were too precious to be stored by human tools. Yet, the lessons they had learned could not be erased. Myra found herself thinking about the endless corridors, the glowing spheres, and the echoes of vanished worlds. Every night, she dreamed of the pyramid, of golden light and silent voices, and she woke with a sense of purpose stronger than any fear. Raoul struggled at first. He wanted to analyze, to understand, to explain everything logically. But each attempt failed. No equations, no instruments, no theories could capture what they had experienced. Slowly, he learned to accept it, not as a failure, but as a new kind of knowledge. Some truths exist beyond numbers and charts. Lean focused on the echoes as well. She began writing in private, recording ideas not for proof, but for understanding. Her notes were not scientific, not in any traditional sense. They were reflections, dreams, and questions inspired by the pyramid. Every word was a step toward carrying humanity's story into the future. Honoring the memories they had witnessed, Dar became quiet, thoughtful. He wandered through crowded cities and remote villages, listening to people's stories. He realized that the pyramid had taught him a simple truth. Every life matters, every memory counts, and the smallest acts of kindness could echo farther than wars or disasters. Myra gathered the team one evening. They sat under the stars, the familiar night sky stretching endlessly above them. "We have to remember what we saw," she said softly. "And we have to help others remember too. Not with words, but with action. With care, with truth." Raoul nodded. "We can't explain it all," he said. "But we can live it." Lean looked at the sky. "The pyramid gave us a choice. Not just to remember, but to be the echo for those who will come after. Our actions, our thoughts, our stories, they can last if we honor them." Dar smiled. "Then we start now. Every day. Every moment counts." And so they did. Years passed, and the world changed around them. The team worked quietly, sharing knowledge, inspiring others to value memory, truth, and understanding. They built schools and libraries, places where stories could be told, remembered, and shared. They encouraged exploration, not for conquest, but for understanding. Humanity began to look beyond itself with respect and care, guided not by fear or greed, but by the quiet lessons of a golden pyramid on a distant desert world. The pyramid itself never spoke again to them, but its presence was always felt. Those who had gone to Rinner carried its memory in subtle ways. They would notice a pattern in the stars, a rhythm in the wind, or a gentle vibration in the ground. It reminded them that nothing truly ends, that every life leaves an echo, and that silence can speak louder than words. Myra grew older, and she often returned in her mind to the golden halls and glowing spheres. She thought of the ancient beings who had built the pyramid, of the worlds that had come before, and of the endless possibilities of the future. She knew humanity was now part of the pyramid's eternal memory, and that knowledge carried a responsibility that would never fade. One evening, as the team sat together beneath the stars, a subtle hum filled the air. It was faint, almost like a whisper carried on the wind. Myra smiled. "It's still listening," she said, "and it will remember us, just as we remember it." Raoul nodded, looking thoughtful. "Maybe one day, someone else will reach it. Someone who will add to the echoes we have left behind." Lean added softly, "And the pyramid will keep waiting, holding the memories of all who come, guiding those who will listen." Dar leaned back, staring at the night sky. We are small in the universe, but our echoes are not. They will last, because we choose them to. The team sat quietly for a while, feeling the rhythm of the world and their place within it. The wind whispered over the fields, carrying sounds of life and memory. Each heartbeat, each laugh, each act of kindness joined the eternal song that the pyramid had begun long ago. Mira thought of the golden hallways and the glowing spheres. She thought of the words that had never been spoken, but had been understood perfectly. She realized that humanity's strength was not in its power or knowledge alone, but in its ability to remember, to care, and to honor the truth. The pyramid had given them a gift beyond measure, the understanding that memory was eternal, that every life mattered, and that silence could speak to those who chose to listen. As night turned into dawn, Mira and her team rose. They knew that the world awaited them, full of challenges and discoveries. They had a mission now that was far greater than exploration or science. They had a promise to keep, a duty to honor every memory and echo they had witnessed. The pyramid, golden and silent, stood on its desert world, waiting and patient. It held the stories of countless civilizations, including humanity, safe within its walls. And though the explorers had left, its heartbeat continued, a rhythm that spanned time and space. Myra looked toward the horizon, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. She whispered softly, "We will remember, and we will make sure the world remembers too." Rao, Lean, and Dar nodded. They felt the same determination, the same quiet strength that the pyramid had inspired. Together, they had become part of something far larger than themselves, a chain of memory and hope that would stretch across worlds and generations. And somewhere, in the endless desert of Rinner, the golden pyramid pulsed gently, holding all that had been, all that was, and all that would ever be. It was silent, yet it spoke more than any voice ever could. It waited for those who would listen, for those who would remember, and for those who would add their own echoes to the eternal song. The universe was vast, and civilizations would rise and fall, but humanity had learned a secret older than any star. Memory was eternal. Stories were sacred. And even in silence, gold could speak with a voice that would never be forgotten. Myra took one last look at the horizon. She felt hope, determination, and peace. Humanity had a future, and its echoes would reach the stars. The pyramid watched silently, eternally, and all was well. The end.